In this lesson, we are going to be talking about percent problems, not just percent specifically, but we're going to be taking a percent of something is going to equal something else. And so here's kind of the thought to it, that it's going to be worded this way, where it's going to be percent of the whole value, the whole number is going to equal a certain part because you're taking the percentage of something. Okay, so there's definitely two different ways to do this problem. And it's just kind of a personal preference on how you want to approach it. So I'm going to show you the two different ways to do this is setting it up as a proportion or setting it up as an equation and solving. Okay, it works both ways. So let me do kind of the first one as a proportion. Okay, and it doesn't matter. I don't really have a set way, like I do one way versus another way all the time. It kind of just depends on the problem. I think I favor probably the equation more, but here's kind of your proportion idea. Okay, so a proportion is when you're going to have a fraction equals a fraction. So the way this is going to look is you're going to have your percent, whatever that value is, so it'd be 20 on this one, is always going to be out of 100. And that's going to equal part to whole. Okay, so a percent is something out of 100, so that would be like the whole. It's going to equal part to whole. So if we take the numbers out of this thing, we're looking at 20%. So 20 out of 100. Okay, now this is why I kind of put the language over here of the word after or the value after of is always your whole. So then that's going to be in the denominator. And then is always going to be the part. So is your equals. Okay, so is what number we don't know. We'll put an X. And once you have a proportion, we cross multiply and we solve it. That process will be exactly the same no matter what. So I always take for the cross product, I take the variable cross product first. So we'll have 100 times X is 100X. And that's going to equal 20 times 75. And 20 times 75 equals 1500. All right. And then we got to get X by itself. Divide by 100. Divide by 100. X is going to equal, if we're just dividing by 100, we can wipe away those two zeros. So X is going to equal 15. So 15 is 20% of 75. Okay, that is absolutely not the only way to do that one, but that's one way to do it. So a proportion. So an equation, we do the other one. So if we take the same type of thing, different words, different kind of thing to it, and we do the equation version of this. So here's a different way to do it, and you got to kind of decide what works for you. So the equation is going to be percent. The word of is multiplication. Okay, so percent times whole number is equals. Okay, so equals part. I'm literally just going to set up an equation. So what percent, we don't know, of 50, so times 50 is 30. And then we solve. So if we were going to solve that equation, we're going to divide 50 over to the other side. And then divide 50. And X is going to equal 30 divided by 50. If you throw that into a calculator, you're going to get 0.6. Okay, now the one difference that proportion is always going to be like if we would have solved using proportions, we wouldn't have got 0.6. We would have actually got the percentage. So the equation version of this is always going to be the decimal version of our percent. So then we have to convert that into a percentage. So we'll have to bump this decimal over 2 spots, and it's really 60%. Okay, so 60% of 50 is 30. Okay, so like I said, if you were doing proportions, you cross multiply, and you get an answer of 60. So that one's a little bit, again, it just kind of depends. So if I do the equation again, so 8 is 10% of what number? Of is multiplication, 10%, since I'm doing an equation, not a proportion, I'm going to make this 0.1 of a number, so times a number. And then I'm going to solve. So I'm going to take this, I want to get x by itself. I'm going to divide 0.1 over the other side. And that's going to get me, if I throw that into a calculator, I'm going to get 8 divided by 0.1 gets me 80. Okay, so I get 80 on that. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. So, and depending upon it, again, let me just go real quick. If we had wanted to do the proportion version of this, we would have done 10% is 10 out of 100. And then of what number? Always up after the word of is your whole. So that's what we don't know. And equals 8 is your part. And then we cross multiply. So we would get 10x equals 800. Divide by 10. And x is going to equal 80. Okay, so two different ways to do it. You get the same result. Again, it just depends on what your comfort level is. Right. In the next video, we're going to do just a couple other, couple more examples.